Thank you so much for tuning in tonight on KBC Channel 1. This is the recap show, and we are going to talk about the media fraternity. It has been tough times for media, especially KTN News, NTV, and Citizen TV after the shutdown that happened on Tuesday 30th. This happened after the Editors Guild chairman Linus Kaikai released a press release condemning the government for interfering with the media freedom. And this also was retaliated by his vice chairman, that is Samuel Maina, who said that the meeting with the State House was there but did not discuss about how the media was not going to be allowed to cover the NASA swearing in event. And this has been so consequential to the media houses. And let me first of all introduce my panelists before we continue. On the far left, I have Victor Moyakane, a news anchor, and also a reporter right on KBC Channel 1. In the middle, we have John Jacob Kioria. Hope I'm right this time. He's also a reporter and a news anchor right here in KBC Channel 1. And of course, I had to start with a lady, but anyway, it's okay. I have the beautiful lady here, that is Ruth Wambui, a news director, and also is also a journalist. It has been in this industry for long. Is the media too careless to deserve punitive action from government for them to operate?
I think from where I sit, there are lines that we must draw and ask ourselves, is the media professional in its conduct? And I would say 60%, yeah, the media in Kenya is professional. But you also must ask ourselves one question, and I say this as a practitioner. What does our Constitution say? How can the media purport to act professionally, yet act outside the precincts of a Constitution? Because the NASA thing, as prescribed by the Constitution, was illegal. End of story. And therefore, by giving it airtime in itself is actually being an abeyance to illegalities. End of story. So if you're asking me about Tuesday and whether the media was professional, I say no. Do they deserve such punitive action? For what? Why? And I want to talk to President Uhuru Kenyatta. Settle down. You're now the President of the Republic of Kenya. That in itself is enough. So what happened to the media by actually switching off KTN News, NTV, and Citizen? That was punitive enough for that day. The continued switch off of these media houses is actually affecting business, and there are colleagues who are employed in some of these media houses. If they're fired, what happens to them? And I think the government needs to think about that. But also equally, this country needs to have an honest conversation on the role of the media, because as it is today, if you go to social media, there are people, and a crux of them, that say, by the fact that these media houses are off, we have had a fresh breath. There's relief because we are not being subjected to drama, useless political analysis, and issues like that, because the media has become what you would call, it has become a conveyor belt for illegalities, a conveyor belt for inconvenience, a conveyor belt for every assault on, freedoms and issues like that. Yet we are the people who are supposed to be holding these people to account, and we don't do the same for the same matter. Okay,
to you, Ruth, do you think the media deserved such punitive action?
According to me, I think first of all, the media, Kenyan media especially, has become so careless nowadays. To me, I think for that day the government did well to shut them down, because what they were planning to do is rising tension in the country. And we know this country has just come from an electioneering period of where people, they have not even settled yet. People are still in that mood of electioneering. So by airing that whole thing of Raila Amolo Odinga, it will raise tension in the country, and maybe it would have led to war to some extent. So I think for that day it was okay.
Okay, to you, Moyakane, before you want to respond, because I'm seeing you have some reaction you want to pass across. But maybe, let me ask you this before, and then you'll have to react.
I think it's important maybe for because he wants to react to this.
I think look at, I would pose a question to all of us. You're walking around in the village or in your neighborhood, and you have your phone, which has a camera, and you witness somebody jumping through a window of, say, a shop, and then coming out with some goods, and they don't look like they own the shop, they don't look like they've bought those goods, and they proceed to take off. And you have two things to do. You can either take a video of the man or you can stop him, right? I feel the Kenyan media is in the position of that man. We have an obligation to report the truth. We have an obligation to report what's happening, to inform our audiences. Some people could argue that broadcasting or showing or even just reporting about what happened at Uhuru Park on that Tuesday, is, within our responsibility as members of the media to show the public what's happening. However, now the question becomes, just like that person standing outside of the shop, do you take the video or do you stop the crime? And both of them actually have their own merits. If you stop the crime, you have stopped the crime, and the results are obvious. If you boycott the so-called swearing in, so to speak, it would not appear, although news of it would leak, but it would not have the same sort of coverage. But on the other hand, if you show it, just like if you take the video of the man stealing from the shop, it can enable whoever, the investigators, to arrest the man and stuff like that. Both of them have their benefits. So I feel, as a media, perhaps the shutdown should have been handled differently. To some people, it would seem like the government is punishing the media and not really the so-called criminal in this case, in my story. That you would punish the man with the camera and not the man who's actually stealing. So it just felt like a bit extreme. Granted, I agree with what my colleagues say, that there's a lot of irresponsibility in the media right now. However, there is time and space to address that. Again, I feel the continued shutdown, to this day, may be a bit extreme and perhaps maybe misplaced anger. Okay. Or maybe misdirected. It could have been handled differently. And in addition to that, I feel the public still deserved to know. And it's sort of embarrassing when something happens in your backyard and your neighbor knows about it and you don't, right?
And that begs the question. Yeah. The work of media is actually to inform what is happening. That's the basic objective of the media. But now, where do we draw the line? Because some are saying that event, yes, was a very big event, an event that qualified to be a human interest story. But now the media was barred from covering the event. Where do we draw the line? Because some quarters are feeling covering the event amounts to incitement to the public. Other side feels that denying the media to cover the event, it's actually denying them the right to information. What do you think about that, Kioria?
I want to say the following. The objective of the media is to inform. That is granted. But inform what? What are we supposed to inform people? All right?
Yeah.
Because our role is agenda setting, all right? Information, entertainment. But for people like us, it cannot be our objective to corrupt the morals of people and then hide behind the issue that we are informing. Because I want to say the following, because this is in regard and the context of the Raila O thing.
Of course.
There are no two ways about it. There's no sitting in the fence. The Constitution is very clear. That the President of the Republic of Kenya is elected in an election, must get 50+1 endorsement, then more than 25% of every that is more than 25 in more than half of the counties, more than 25% of the votes. If parties are not satisfied with the results, it goes to the Supreme Court. In 2017, we went to the Supreme Court, and the election of Uhuru Kenyatta was declared null and void by Chief Justice David Maraga and the bench. Then there was the 26th of October, and Raila Odinga, because of his fears, genuine or not, because it is not in our area to discuss how IEBC was organized for the election or not. But the fact of the matter is, on the 26th of October, an election happened, and Uhuru Kenyatta was declared validly elected as president. When it went to the Supreme Court upheld that election. When it did, it paved way for the swearing in of Uhuru Kenyatta that happened on the 28th of November. It happened in the presence of a Chief Justice and was conducted by the Registrar of the Judiciary. That is what the Constitution provides. Any time, and you can go and read Article 4 of the Constitution, any attempt to create a government other than the one prescribed by the Constitution is illegal and unlawful. End of story. There's nothing like information there.
Okay, and Curia, it's legal, it's okay from the quarters of the lawyers and the Attorney General.
Not the lawyers and the Attorney General. It is the law.
Okay, let's say the law. Let's assume it's the
Yes.
law. But why would media then suffer instead of the real culprits? Why?
Good. It's a good question you ask. And Victor Mayakane directed to that and said, the government is targeting the wrong people. Because what you are supposed to stop is the broadcast of the illegal event. And that happened on that particular day, that Tuesday. The media houses that have been switched off did not show it at the end of the day.
And actually, by the way, interesting, the Minister for Interior said that the police were aware of the event, one. Two, they were also aware of a secret plan to smuggle in arms and all that stuff, and they chose to desist from handling that. So really, again, back to that story I told, so there's a guard, there's a policeman who's watching this man jump into the shop and steal, but prefers not to engage this man, not to stop the crime, and instead harass the man who took the video of the man who, committed the crime. But I agree that I think you raise a critical point. At what point in the execution of our jobs as the agenda setters, as the informers and entertainers of our society, at what point do you, like you said, draw the line between reporting and abetting a crime? And still, I think the government should have consulted the media on how to cover that event better, rather than, I think it was a bit heavy-handed.
But equally on the question that you asked,
okay,
maybe hold on a minute, because what I wanted to say is, because Victor cut me short, but what I was saying is, it's okay. The media narrative ended on Tuesday.
Yes.
When the oathing ended.
Yeah.
That is when the media narrative ended. And therefore, the following morning or that evening after the oathing, the media houses should have been switched back. The narrative that ought to have started is arrest the guy who committed treason and his people. So the question that the government must tell Kenyans today is, why isn't Raila Odinga being arrested? Why are you arresting cronies around here? Do you fear this man or whatever?
Okay, to you, Ruth. According to the information that we have, the police knew about this event. They were informed prior and even followed some events where the county government closed Uhuru Park for claims that they were going to do renovation, which did not happen. And then the event continued to happen at Uhuru Park. Now the CS to come in now and try to say that there were people who were smuggling weapons in the crowd at Uhuru Park, that they were planning for treason. Are we being fooled because they knew they could have taken action? The work of police is to secure the people, and of course, if it's a matter of rally, they have to secure the rally. Did they fail and then put the blame on the media?
First of all, I think the police, to some extent, they are fooling us. Because if, first of all, they knew about that plan, and first of all, they should know because they have intelligence all over. So anything that happens within the country, mostly they are the first one to know before even the thing reaches the owner. So they knew. What did they do? Do you know the police were removed that very morning? The Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. is when the police who were there at Uhuru Park were recalled back to go. It was decided that let the event go on. So why should they come on again and tell us they knew there were some goods or the what? No. To some extent, I think they are fooling us.
I had to be the devil's advocate, and I had to be the one who is interrupting all this time. But let's ask ourselves the most reasonable question and go by the theory of the Interior Ministry and then come back to NASA. We have seen very serious confrontations in this country that have ended up very tragic. When Raila Odinga came from the United States, the state directed its brutality on his supporters. What we ended up with about 5 people dead. During these demonstrations of anti-EBC, the state again visited brutality on the demonstrators. We ended up with people who were dead. The question that therefore we must ask ourselves, and I did a story, I remember on Sunday, when Japheth Koome, the Nairobi police commandant, said they would not allow any person inside there. And at the back of my mind, and I said on Tuesday morning, I don't want to switch on a TV station because I can't afford to see more tear gas and people dying on the screen. It is totally impossible. And so when I woke up and had police had been withdrawn, I felt a sigh of relief. All right? Because if it is true that these people came armed, it meant then obviously we would have casualties. Police would be shooting, and then the armed people would be shooting. But the other question that we must ask ourselves is, so let's assume your theory was true. Where are the guys who are armed? In fact, there's a clip showing a man with a gun-trotting man directing it at a police vehicle that day at Uhuru Highway.
Well,
I know they will say investigations are being conducted, but surely you cannot tell me that a country that has invested billions in Safaricom cameras cannot get the face of a person who directed a gun at a police gun. And that makes sense.
It's a very good note to end this show tonight. And of course, be sure to join us in the next episode where we're talking about more stories and more about the media fraternity. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much, Victor Muyakane, for having time to join us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you also, Kihoria. We also have to have you guys more. Thank you, Ruth, for your time. And also, we have to do it as media personalities. Thank you so much. And see you next time.